cloud because
okay. So it's going right now.
okay, so these are the participants.
Correct. We should remember to unmute people if we have questions.
Right, they can hear us, and then there's
We have questions during. I don't know if we want to unmute people.
we can.
Chat.
Just in case there's a question. Okay, okay. I think this is probably everybody. Oh.
If anybody else comes in, sit in
Yeah.
the front of the class.
So we have a couple on Zoom and maybe one more via Zoom. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Basically, what I wanted to talk about today is last year in 2017, Dr. Mir Marana asked me to create a scholarly communications working group, a group of faculty across all the different colleges to basically talk to them about scholarly communication issues that people have on academic campuses, what we can do from the library perspective and from a faculty perspective to educate the UT Tyler community about these scholarly communication issues. So the first thing that the working group did is we came up with this charge that you can see on the screen here. And basically we wanted to, are you sharing your screen? I think so. Okay. Can everyone see that document on Zoom?
I can't.
Okay. Let me.
Okay. Well, you could. Oh, I.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Everybody good now? Okay, great. So this is basically like the draft charge that the working group came up with to develop some kind of program to educate and inform UT Tyler community about these scholarly communications issues, including copyright policies and issues affiliated primarily with the scholarship that faculty do, fair use as it applies to the classroom, author rights, open access, ScholarWorks at UT Tyler, which is UT Tyler's institutional repository, which is the place where the open access journal articles and presentations and posters and things like that are stored, as well as our master's and doctoral students' theses and dissertations, predatory journals and how to avoid those and evaluate whether or not you are publishing in high quality journals, to highlight the directory of open access journals, and then also Kyle, who's going to talk later, and the interest in implementing open educational resources. So basically everyone can see our charge. We met a couple of times, and it became really apparent that the number one thing that we needed to do was create some sort of resource guide that covers all of these topics, just so faculty can have something to point to get the information that they need when they come across any of these issues related to scholarly communication. So what I'm going to do is just basically review that guide with you guys today. Let's see. So this is available online for anyone to find. All you have to do, you can get to it through the library, but if you just Google UT Tyler Scholarly Communication, the first result is going to be this research guide. And so this covers all of those issues that the working group thought were important that faculty should be learning about and be informed about on campus. So what I'm going to, and everyone can see this, right? Screen sharing is small. Okay, I'm going to assume, move it together. Yeah. Let's see.
I just see the first working group paper.
Yeah,
okay, let's try.
You have to stop share and then share again.
Okay. Yeah, okay. How about now? Good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the resource guide that we came up with as a working group, the topics that everyone wanted to discuss. So I'm basically just going to go through each of these tabs and highlight the different topics. I will stop after each one if you guys have specific questions about these things and try to answer them if I can. First, this welcome page is just why it's important to know about scholarly communications. the scholarly communications and the issues surrounding it has really grown to be an important topic in the last 20 or 30 years because of the rising costs of journals, and research libraries haven't really been able to keep up with subscription to all of the research journals that are out there as their prices increase. Because there's been such a huge increase in the past 10 or 15 years of low quality and or predatory journals. A study in 2015 showed that I think in the last 10 years there's been a rise of over 8,000 predatory journals out there seeking publications from faculty like Faculty E.T. Tyler. With the rise of the internet, there are new and creative ways to share your research. So scholarly communication can play a big part in that. And generally, researchers have started to ask the question, why do libraries, why do my students or other people interested in my topic, why do they have to pay upwards of $50, $100 to have access to my journal article? Why can't they just see it for free? Why can't I share my research in a way that anyone can see it and that they don't have to pay for it? So these are all of the issues why scholarly communication has become an interesting and important topic, especially in academic campuses. So the most important thing on this page is that bolded part that just says, before you sign any transfer or copyright agreement, know your rights. Know ahead of time what you're signing away. If you're signing away full copyright, know ahead of time if you're going to be able to share your research with your colleagues, if you're going to be able to share your research with your students, if you can post it on your website. So that's the most important thing that you should know as authors, is to just be aware of what exactly you're signing over. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in here. The first tab is copyright. This is just an overview about what copyright is and what the copyright law is, and what it means for authors. As authors, the copyright law protects whenever you create an original work in any tangible medium. So it was originally created to promote the progress of science and the arts by securing for authors and inventors the exclusive right to their writing. It protects the legal right to publish and sell musical, literary, or artistic works. It protects producers, publishers, authors, and the public. It works for both traditional media and e-journals and websites. And as you can see in this bulleted list, copyrighted works protected are literary, musical, motion pictures, performances, pictures, sculptures, sound recording, architectural works. And this video here, I think it's only like about 5 minutes long, but it's a great kind of crash course in the history of copyright, what types of items can be copyrighted, a little bit more information, how long works are protected. He goes into fair use a little bit, especially fair use in the classroom. So if you have a chance, definitely check out that video.
Has this site been sent to faculty?
It has been sent to some faculty. So I've had a couple of, I know that we sent it to Dr. Biermeron, and I've sent it to a couple of departments. The School of Education has received it. And so one of the things that I did with the working group, which Kyle is on, is said, like, send this to your faculty, talk to your colleagues about these topics, because they're going to impact everyone, whether or not it's just in the classroom or with your research.
I just was making a note about maybe seeing about presenting it to faculty senate.
Yeah. So please feel free to share this or the Zoom link or any information. Yeah.
I mean, I just think this is good for our undergraduate and graduate student research group, that we are really kind of promoting. Amy Hayes is our liaison for that, and she's got a fairly large working group with the Lyceum. They're working with Paul in the Honors College.
Yeah.
And just thinking for some of our students, even this is a good resource, but even our new faculty. So I just think it'd be nice. And I'm happy to send it out, but I think the library could send it out and just say, hey, this is a great resource for you, and kind of define a little bit about what it is. We can even, because this is recorded, we can even send you the recording link and make it go straight into this talk.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
you could add that to your email if you wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. So are there any questions just kind of about copyright in general? Yeah, okay.
Put it in the chat.
Yeah, they should put,
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move on to fair use. This is a pretty complicated topic. So fair use is basically a legal doctrine that provides a defense. If you are put in a position where like some corporation or publisher or something tries to sue you for using a movie in your classroom or copying too much from a textbook or something like that, fair use is going to be your defense as a teacher in a classroom to defend why you didn't infringe on that company's copyright. So there are 4 factors in determining fair use. The first is, what is the character of the use? Is it transformative? Is it to create something new? Does it add new expression or new meaning? Or is it just simply copied and used word for word? If it's transformative, you're probably going to be able to use that first factor as your defense of fair use. Do you know, I feel like you know some examples of transformative. It's,
Oh, sure. Like you can make an argument with a piece of art, for example, if you're referencing something in music, using that in an original sort of arrangement. That said, we've got a lot of examples, of course, of people getting in trouble with that.
Yeah.
But
which leads to some of the other factors. So the second one is, what is the nature of the work being used? So overwhelmingly, faculty will probably be covered under this defense because the nature of the work is factual and research-based. It's not just copying and reproducing like fictional work or plays or novels. You're progressing the work, you're transforming the work. How much of the work are you using? So this is kind of everyone's favorite claim when they joke about fair use. Well, I only copied 50 pages of this 75-page book, so it's fair use. Which technically it might not be. Ideally, the less that you copy, the more you'll be able to claim fair use. But even then, if you use what the owner of that copyright believes is the heart of the work, then this factor will not be a good fair use defense. An example of that was if you copy the hook of a song and everyone recognizes it as that song, like Michael Jackson's Beat It or whatever, and everyone is like, that's clearly a copy, then the people that own the copyright of that work could say, you took the heart of my work and made something new with it. That is infringing on my copyright. But along with that, a parody of a work, like, for example, Weird Al and all of his weird songs, a parody is transformative. So that is under fair use because it's creating something new. So although he does take the heart of the work, because it sounds just like all of the original songs that he's copied, it's a transformative parody, so that is covered under fair use. The fourth one is pretty interesting. It's the effect on the market for the original work. So you have to consider whether your use takes from the copyright owner's income or it impedes on a new potential market for that copyright owner. So if you do copy that hook of the song, but nobody listens to it and you don't make millions of dollars off of it, then maybe you could use the defense of that fourth factor. Is it's not really impeding on that person's like ability to make money off of their original work. This guide includes more information to learn about fair use. There's these tools here. Some of them walk people through whether or not you would be able to use fair use as a defense. There is also, I should say, which is not on this guide, there is a separate copyright law exception for use of resources in the classroom, which I feel like everyone pretty much knows. The stipulation for that is that it must be, if you're showing a movie, a Disney movie, obviously that's copyrighted. So it has to be in a physical classroom. There has to be some sort of instructional aspect to the showing of the movie. And it has to be face-to-face, and the person teaching the class has to be there. So I know that fair use is something that faculty, most teachers really worry about because you don't want to infringe on copyright. So the most important thing to know is just be a good steward of someone's copyright. If you want to use something, you're probably going to have the ability to use it because you're teaching it in a classroom, but it doesn't hurt to cite the copyright owner. And if you're using the entire text in a journal article, maybe try to contact that person and make sure that they know ahead of time that you'll be doing that. So just try to be a good and aware of the ways that you're using copyrighted material. Okay, so does anybody have questions about fair use?
If that lady that someone got her picture there has a chat question.
She can,
And we'll see it at the bottom.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know when I publish, and Dr. McWhorter, who's here also, we do a lot of things together. When we publish articles that we put images in, the journal editors always ask that we get permission from the person who owns the pictures.
Right.
And so a lot of times they do that because they want their pictures to be seen. And we have to cite pictures, but we have to get signed waivers for us to use those in articles.
Yeah, and I can almost guarantee that when you sign the copyright agreement to have that journal article published, it's going to say that you have to have those things cited and that the publisher is not responsible for any kind of copyright infringement if you don't have it properly cited. So that falls 100% on the author. So it's really important to do your due diligence. I know that we've had faculty in the past contact me and contact other librarians about, can I use this? Can I use this? And generally I just say, just try to cite it as best as you can, especially if it's like an image or something like that. Like generally people are going to be okay with you using stuff unless there's like a giant watermark that says, under copyright by this person, you have to contact them or you have to pay them to use it. So just kind of be aware of those issues as you publish and when you use copyrighted works in your classroom. Okay, so the next tab is about author rights. This section covers like what rights you have as an author. When you write something down, an original piece of work on a piece of paper, you own copyright immediately. It is yours. You have the exclusive right to reproduce that work, to distribute it, to perform it, display it. You can modify it. You don't have to get something published just to have the copyright. You are the owner of it immediately when you create that creative or original work in a tangible way. One example is, if I come up with a brilliant idea for a movie and I tell Margot, I have this great idea for a movie, and I don't write it down, and Margot takes my idea and makes a movie, I can't sue her for copyright infringement because I don't have a tangible piece of paper that says that it was my idea first. And she would totally do that to me. No, so that's something to remember, is that once you get it down in a tangible way, it is yours. And the bottom section here is a really interesting kind of description about like what are your goals when you create something? When you write something for original, what do you want to do with that? Do you just want everyone to read it and see it or hear your work and you don't care about getting paid? In that case, you might want to consider posting it online, potentially in UT Tyler's institutional repository, on your personal website, on an academic website. You can apply a Creative Commons license to that, describing how you'd like for people to use it, which I think Kyle might go into Creative Commons license a little bit later. Are you primarily interested in visibility, but you need a specific way to distribute it? And this is where faculty come in. You want people to read your stuff, but you need it to be distributed through a high quality journal. So you would think about how, where you would get that published, why you're getting it published in that. You want to make sure that you can reuse your work, but you know that you don't expect to profit from your work. Or do you expect to get commercial gain? And you professionally create things and you do want to get paid. You need to think about what your goal is from that aspect too. Like you make sure you have that little copyright symbol on all of your work when you post it online so that people know that in order to access it, you expect to be paid for that. This section over here is a good resource for if you want to negotiate your rights. Specifically, this applies to primarily to like journal articles. So say you are about to be published in, Nurse Educator, and you want to make sure that you can provide an open access version of your article after you are published in that journal. You can submit with your copyright agreement with that publisher an author addendum that says, I would like to request to be able to put the first draft of this paper on my website, or I would like to be able to put the published final version of this research article on UT Tyler's institutional repository. Then you can click on this link here, this Spark author addendum, and it basically has all of that information for you. You just fill in like your name, the journal, the title. So it's a great resource if you're interested in providing open access to all of your scholarship when it's being published.
So would this be where you would go? Because, we're kind of we're in a catch-22. We want to have our articles, we have to have enough for tenure, and we want to have enough out there that people can see them, but we don't have the funds to necessarily pay for these open access sites to put them on there. But now our tenure is going to be, it seems like it's more based on the number of citations that we get, because I was the first one that one of the first ones that went up under Dr. Memoran as provost, and he writes a letter with your citation factors, your index factors, and we were not aware of that. And so if you have an open access, you're going to get better citation factors,
Right.
but some of those are like $900 to put them into that kind of.
Right. So if you send in an author addendum, or as you know, if you save like the first draft of your research article or the draft after peer review, generally most publishers will let you put that version in your institution.
People also put them on like ResearchGate.
Yeah.
I'm always skeptical. Is that okay to do, or is that not okay to do?
ResearchGate is tricky because I don't know if anyone else has ResearchGate profile, but ResearchGate basically is safe under copyright infringement because they consider themselves like scholarly sharing, which generally is covered. You'll get a copy of your article. Jeremy will get a copy of something he's published. He's allowed to share it with his colleague. And so that's kind of how ResearchGate works. If someone creates an account and they request from you personally access to this article, then you can decide,
And it's okay to do that.
I've given this to my colleague. Technically, it's okay.
Like, should I do that? Should I not? Am I going to get in trouble? And then some of my colleagues, if you're co-authors, they post it, and I'm like, not.
You will get, if you were to get in trouble, you would get in less trouble putting it on ResearchGate and requiring someone to create an account and ask for it from you personally than you would if it's under copyright and you post it on your website. But the important thing with this scholarly communications thing in open access is open access solves all of those problems. So if you don't want to pay, you don't want to have to worry about the ResearchGate thing. If you know you can't post it on your personal website, you don't want to pay $1,000 or $2,000 to make the journal make it open access, then keep your first draft of that journal article. Keep your
pre-pub.
the pre-publication, the pre-prints, it has a million names. Keep the draft after peer review, which is basically the same exact copy as what's going to be published in that journal article. And overwhelmingly, journal publishers will let you put one of those two versions in ScholarWorks at UT Tyler. And then you're not only getting the impact factor from whatever journal or database the library happens to have access to where people find it, but people are being able to find it through a basic Google search, and you're getting all those hits on ScholarWorks as well.
We need to go here and ask for permission to do that.
Well, if you want it to be fully open access, so if you want your published version to be open access, if you want to ask, then you can, you can send forward an author addendum.
Tell you no.
Yeah, they can tell you no. They're not going to not publish your article if you ask. Let's see. One of the things we did with the working group is I went through Dr. Haas's full CV and basically wrote down like every single person or every single company that she'd been published with. And the overwhelming majority of them were like Elsevier, Wiley, Springer, LLW. Every single one of those huge publishing companies, they will let you put the pre-pub first version or that post-print after peer review version in your institution's institutional repository. It's just a matter of like knowing that ahead of time, keeping that copy and letting me know that you want to do that, and I'll do that for you. So there's just all kinds of good information here about keeping your copyright. And again, if you just want to send that with your agreement and they write back and they're like, no, we're not gonna just let you post this online for free, then at least you've asked. You know, you put it out there that you're interested in providing an open access option. And I will say, one of the strategic planning initiatives that the library put forward last year was to create a model where the university or the library will fund open access publication fees if you publish in a reputable open access journal. So I think right now, the directory of open access journals has, 10,000, 12,000 reputable open access journals that charge anywhere between $200 and $3,000 to pay that open access publishing fee. So,
and I guess the idea behind why they do that is because they're trying to make up for the loss of revenue.
Subscription, yeah. So they're asking you to do that to sustain like their editorial board, the peer review process, the website, and things like that. So hopefully that initiative will go through, and when you are interested in publishing in open access journals that are high quality, the library, the university will be able to pay those fees for you to encourage more open access publishing on campus. We shall see, fingers crossed. Okay, so now as we talk about open access, this tab goes over just kind of what open access is and why it's important, why it matters in the research world today, and goes over some of the benefits. If you want to support the widest reach of your research without any of those publisher limitations, without the library having to pay a subscription to that journal article, then you want to provide some portion of your work as open access. Open access documents can include research articles, textbooks, workbooks, data sets. You can see in this infographic here some of the benefits. Obviously, there's increased visibility because researchers don't have to worry about a paywall. They don't have to worry about paying for access to your article. They don't have to worry about being affiliated with a library to pay access to get to the article. Because of the increased visibility, you have increased citation rates. Open access has been proven to have a global impact and drive innovation because more people can see your stuff, and so more people are interested in kind of adapting and doing collaboration. Also, open access complies with funding policies. Maybe 2012-ish, a law was passed that any journal articles that come from, that are created from any kind of federal funding are mandated to be open access after a certain amount of time. So if you get a federal grant from the government and 2 years after that, you write an article based on the work that you did for that grant, after a certain amount of time, you have to provide an open access option because the government is paying for you to do this research, so they want everyone to be able to see it. Here's where I'm talking about the directory of open access journals. If you are interested in publishing open access, the first thing to do is check here and make sure that it's listed as a good high quality journal there. You can see books, open access repositories. This section here, this open access terminology, this is what you're going to see. This is a portion of what you'll see in most copyright policies. The gold open access option is the final version, the version that the publisher puts out is freely available and accessible to anyone. That's the best open access model. So that is, your article's been written. After 6 months, you can post it on your website. You can share it however you want. You can post it in your institutional repository. You're not limited to use a particular version. The green open access model, which is also called self-archiving, is that option where you can put a particular version of your article on your website or on an institutional repository. So the example is the Journal of Nursing Management. It allows authors to deposit their preprint, that first draft, or the postprint after peer review in the institutional repository, but not the final PDF or manuscript. So that's a green open access model. Again, here's more description about what a preprint version and a postprint version is. So I'd like to jump out here. So what I do for faculty, and I can do this for anyone that's listening today, generally all you have to do is say, I'm interested in making some of my stuff open access, whether it's conference papers, presentations that you've done, or published articles. Basically, you just tell me you're interested in it. I will download your CV from Faculty 180, and I will work through all of those copyright policies for you, and I will let you know which articles are allowed to go on UT Tyler's institutional repository. So the best resource that I use for that is Sherpa Romeo, which has it's a database of over like 22,000 individual journals, and it breaks down for you their copyright agreement based on whether or not the journal allows for open access or self-archiving of that preprint or postprint version. So what's a journal, and we'll look it up. Name any journal.
Music Theory Spectrum.
Okay. So let's see if this is in Sherpa Romeo. Okay, it is. So this document just breaks down for you the journals.
Can you see that screen?
Yeah, everyone can see this, right? We're good? Okay, great, thank you. So this page, so you type in the title of the journal, and this page tells you, based on the copyright policies, which are linked here, so you can reference them if you need to, this journal will allow an author to put their first version, their preprint version, in an institutional repository. The postprint, that version after peer review, subject to the restrictions below. So there's a 12-month embargo on science, technology, and medicine, 2-year embargo on arts and humanities. That means if your article is published in January of 2018, in January of 2020, you can post the postprint version on an institutional repository. And it says archiving status unclear, which probably means that they don't allow you to put that final publisher version online. And then there's these conditions, which says like postprints only in institutional repository or repositories. You must acknowledge the original publishing source. You have to link to the publisher version. So this is what I use to determine whether or not your articles can be put on ScholarWorks at UT Tyler, and or what version of your articles can be put on ScholarWorks at UT Tyler, which is our institutional repository. Let's try.
American Library Journal. Harvard Business Review is very restricted.
Let's see, we've got some chat. Okay, that was from a while ago. ResearchGate is for-profit enterprise. Yes, I use ScholarWorks, but some are still under copyright, so I think you have to link them. Yes, so Rochelle, if you have articles where you've kept that pre-published version, if you want to send me your CV, I think I should already have gone through it, but if you have new stuff, I can go back and review which of those journals allow you to put that pre-publication on ScholarWorks and let you know, and I'm happy to add those for you.
It's important to say some do and some don't.
Yeah, some do and some don't, and some are going to have an embargo of 6 months, and some are going to have an embargo of 2 years. And what I've done in the past with, if there is an embargo, is I just go forward in my calendar and say, add Dr. Herman's article, post-print article. This is the day 2 years from now that I can add it. So I'll take care of all of that for you. Are there any open access? Yeah, so right now there aren't any open access funds available, but hopefully if that strategic planning initiative goes forward, we will be able to provide those funds for faculty who are interested in publishing in open access journals.
And it did make the final draft.
Yeah, it is in the draft document. So hopefully
the president just sent out.
Hopefully it will go through.
Do Harvard Business Review. They are extremely restricted.
More
Can they not?
You can, if you are interested, you can definitely contact me, and I'm happy to check all of those different websites to find out if there's an open access option available. I can also check and let you know before you publish Maybe there won't be an open access option available, but they'll allow that preprint or postprint. And so I can just tell you, keep that draft of your document. You know, I think generally, as Julie said in the past, you just keep that final version that they send you and you get rid of all the drafts because you have the final version. So keep those versions and just let me know and I will look into all that stuff for you. Okay, let's just search a couple more. Harvard Business Review.
They are so restrictive. I'm just curious what will show up on them.
Okay, so this is not a journal that Sherpa Romeo has graded yet. Basically, all this information is crowdsourced. People like me who work with institutional repositories and review copyright policies will look at Harvard Business Review's copyright policy and break it down and email Sherpa Romeo and say, hey, here's their policies. So no one has done that yet.
Okay.
If this is the case with something that you published, if it's not in Sherpa Romeo, I will try to find that copyright information directly at the journal's website. So I'm not just going to say like, well, it's not in Sherpa Romeo, so I'm not going to look into it. I will do my due diligence in trying to find that copyright agreement for you.
Some journals tell you about it, and some journals don't have any information.
Some journals will have the copyright policy online, others don't. I've seen some where, I forget whose it was, but there was one faculty, I think in education, that said, we'll put your publisher version online, open access, but the author has to ask, not an advocate for the author. So I had to email that faculty member and say, I can put this online open access, but you have to ask them. So there's all kinds of different stipulations, and I will go through all of that and let you know what you need to do, what I need to do. So
I think it's important to point out that the whole reason you have to ask is that when you get published, generally you're signing away your copyright so that the publisher now owns that copyright.
yeah,
That's the only reason we have to ask,
yes,
because
Yes.
they now own it.
yes,
You don't.
because if you post your article that's been published in a journal on your website, you're infringing on their copyright because you've signed copyright over to that journal.
It's library journal.
Library? It is not. Let's see, I think which one I said earlier, Nurse Educator. Yeah, so this is another example. Preprint, yes, and there's going to be conditions on your personal website or institutional repository. That post-print version with the 12-month embargo. And if you guys want, we do have an example of a post-print article in ScholarWorks. So I can show that to you guys so you have an idea of what that looks like. Let's get back to this. So just keep in mind that there are options for you, even if you are being traditionally published in a journal. You're still going to have the ability to make your stuff open access, which leads into this one. This tab basically covers everything I've already talked about, how to provide open access for your published works. ScholarWorks at UT Tyler is the library's way to support open access for faculty. I think some people here already have some content in ScholarWorks. We have theses and dissertations, published articles, again, where the copyright allows. We've added in conference papers, posters, presentations. I don't know if we have any musical compositions or video recordings yet, but if you have like a working paper or technical report, you can put that in there. And we do also accept, if you're a faculty member and you're teaching a graduate research class or an undergraduate research class, and you want to be able to share that, to have the student be able to share that as they apply for grad school or something like that, let me know, and we can definitely accept like best papers from students, undergraduate research projects, things like that. It's really a resource for you guys to use in whatever way you want to get your research or your students' research out there.
Scroll down so they can see.
So yeah,
And it's a permanent link under UT Tyler.
yeah, and so each resource that is added to ScholarWorks at UT Tyler, so say you put, you have a conference paper that goes in there. Once a month, ScholarWorks at UT Tyler emails people who participated in it how many times your work has been downloaded, and oftentimes it'll say where it's been downloaded from, and it might even say which institution, which again supports your impact factor. So you can say, you know, I have this article published in this journal and it's been downloaded 20 times and cited 20 times. So you can say, well, and I also have the same version of this article, the post-print version in ScholarWorks at UT Tyler, and it's been downloaded 200 times, and here are all the places it's been downloaded. This is just an interactive live map which shows all the different works that we have in ScholarWorks and shows like where they're being downloaded.
No, I mean, I also understand what a conference paper and poster is. When you have presentations listed here, I mean, are those like video recordings of presentations?
We have, Margot and I have a presentation that we did. We used Camtasia, I think, and recorded voiced over the presentation. But we also have some nursing faculty who just put their PowerPoint presentations from classes that they've taught or from conferences they've been to, with either like supplemental information about, you know, what they said or just the presentation itself.
Well, the reason I'm asking, I saw, you know, next week on the 14th, we have the Innovation Awards Showcase, which is 6 of our faculty who are presenting what they've done over the last year, and they actually won some money to do something really innovative in their class. And there's a music faculty member who created a Padlet, and she showed it to me yesterday, and it's very interactive. It seems like it would fit something like this.
Yeah, we can definitely look at it. Yeah.
But I don't know that she's aware, you know, of research kinds of
Right.
repository.
Interactive Padlet thing, is it more of an OER type thing?
I haven't seen Padlet before, but Dr. Sue Park, our colleague, was describing it to us. It sounds
It's pretty neat. It is like a virtual poster board.
Okay.
And so it's very graphically, you know, interactive and colorful and very visual. So it just seems like it'd be something, if she knew, you know, that she could submit to this and have something in the repository.
Yeah, right now, what we have in ScholarWorks is basically what you see in this bulleted list, but it does allow for a variety of different things. There are some institutions that use this software to host like online workshops or online conferences, where you can, like we're recording this Zoom session, you can record the conference, and it will automatically be stored in ScholarWorks, and there will be a way, you know, it'll be stored so that people can go back to that conference and view the content again and again.
Can you track who's seen it? Like who's gone in and viewed it?
Not specifically, but you'll get a track of like how many times it's been viewed.
and where in the world,
Location,
too.
yeah, and location. And there are even times where a particular, you know, say HRD, someone's article has been downloaded, and it will say, your article was downloaded in Chicago, and then they'll say below that, from the University of Chicago. Like, so it's a really great way to prove to yourself and to your tenure committee that your stuff is actually getting some traction and getting looked at. So real quick, I just want to show you, I gotta give Kyle some time, an example of that post-print version that I was referring to. School of Nursing. So, and each department has their own interactive map. So the School of Nursing, this includes dissertations and faculty works. They have 104 papers in there right now. And in the past year, those papers have been downloaded 5,700 times. So that's pretty impressive. So under Nursing Faculty Publications and Presentations, let's find it. And these are all things that a nursing faculty member has contacted me and said, look at my CV and tell me what I can add. And I've done that, and I've looked at it, and I've added all of these things for them. So as a faculty member, you don't really have to do anything other than just let me know and or send me the presentation or send me that preprint. I think it's this example. So this is Dr. Herman's Second Life as a Clinical Conference paper. Let's see if it'll pull up. So I'm going to scroll down here, and you can see this is a post-print version. This is after peer review. It still has the line, the page lining. I think this here says, you know, she's approved that this is the title. She was told to approve like that her name is spelled right and that the institution is right. And I don't have a copy. You know, there's some marks about make sure, you know, you can change all of this word to this. But if I had a copy of the actual publisher version side by side with this version, word for word, they're exactly the same. The only difference is it doesn't say, it doesn't have that watermark proof, and it doesn't have these sort of check and make sure the spelling is right, but the content is there. So now people are seeing this journal article for free versus having to go through their library or having to pay to download it through the publisher.
Or go through ResearchGate, set up an
Yeah,
account,
or
then reach out.
or go through ResearchGate, hope that she has a ResearchGate account, hope that she'll share with you. So just something to keep in mind. The last thing I wanted to cover is journal quality. Just real quick, when you are about to be published, generally you know what the top journals are in your area. You can talk to your colleagues and stuff like that, but there has been an insane growth of predatory open access journals over the past 10 or 15 years. So just be aware that there are predatory people out there who are going to send you an email and say, oh, you write about this topic? Pay us $500 and we'll publish this tomorrow. So be aware that that is a growing issue for authors in academia. And this tab here will just walk you through, like, talk to your colleagues. Have any of them heard of this journal? Did the journal just send a blanket email to all of UT Tyler faculty? If they did, then that's probably questionable. Is there a publication fee, and what does it cover? Is it claiming to cover access, but it's not like truly open access? Is there a blind peer review? Things like that. So this is just a good resource, especially for junior faculty who are just beginning to publish, to think about what type of journal you're publishing in, because it can have a real impact and consequence when you go up for your tenure review and reviews in the future, particularly when you unknowingly have published in potentially predatory journals and you don't know that you have, and maybe your colleagues don't know that you have, but your external reviewers know that you have. So it's really important to be aware of that stuff as you publish and as you pursue tenure. So, okay, are there any questions about that? Okay, I'm gonna let Kyle take over and he's gonna talk to you guys about open educational resources.
All right, so I know it's scary. I've got 2.5 pages of notes, but I'll go real quick if I can. So this is the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. I get all those prepositions right. We've been talking a lot about the scholarly side of things so far, about publications and what we do with the knowledge that we create as teachers. But I wanted to talk a little bit about my own experience working with materials in the classroom as they relate to scholarly communications, how this affects teaching as well as scholarship. First, a really brief story. I want, for those of us who have done college level teaching, think about the first semester that you ever had full control over, like an undergraduate class, for example. Think back to that. What textbook were you using? What lecture notes were you lecturing out of? Where did you get those things? How were those decisions made for you? In my experience, it was my second year in grad school. I was a teaching assistant in Music Theory 1, and I was teaching first level freshmen the basics of the first component of a 4-semester sequence of how does music work? How does music function? It's something that every music major has to take 4 semesters of. And I found, I needed teaching resources, obviously, and we were assigned this textbook that I had been using since I was a freshman. And I'm on my 4th different edition of that now. And it's a textbook, and it comes along with a workbook for homework. But there were things that I needed to use to sort of supplement that, even in terms of how to explain how part writing works, or how to explain how to spell a certain chord. And I was sort of co-teaching with an experienced full professor, Dr. Taylor, who would meet with me once a week along with the other teaching assistants and say, so how are you all explaining voice leading this week? And we would just talk about it. And then he would pull out his 3-inch binder of handouts just for that semester and say, well, here's 17 handouts I use for in-class practice and how I lecture and how I organize my materials. How are you doing it? And I would say, I'm reading the pages in the textbook and talking about it and going through examples. I was kind of lost. And every so often, maybe once a week, he'd say, well, do you want a copy of this this one page so you can teach that better? And I'd say, great. And I'd make a bunch of copies of it and I would use it and my teaching would get better. And it seemed very strange to me that he had 3 inches worth of material for the semester, and maybe once a week he'd give us, one thing. I'll come back to that at the end. So I'm going to talk today about open educational resources. Open educational resources, as defined by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, are teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in the public domain or have been released under intellectual property licenses that permit their free use and repurposing by others. In this case, repurposing is key. It's not just here you can have this worksheet or here you can have this textbook, but that it's designed from the ground up, that you can tinker with it. You can take a chapter out or add 3 more chapters or just take half of a worksheet. So it's about tinkering as well as sharing educational resources. Examples of OER can be textbooks, can be workbooks, exams, lesson plans like I've been talking about, software, anything that you use in the course of your teaching. The potential benefits for OER are vast. We've seen in the past couple of years, Georgia Public University System had a $2.1 million textbook transformation grant, which by the end of this past academic year saved students an estimated $26.4 million. North Dakota has a similar program that saved a lot of money. The University of Massachusetts Amherst, that one institution, boasts on their website that they have saved students $1.6 million in textbook costs over the last 8 years at their institution. They've got a really big presence here. And roughly half of the states in the US have some kind of official effort to get OER supported and developed and adopted. I'm going to skip over trying to convince you why OER are necessary. Just know that college prices are rising much faster than inflation and have been for a couple of decades now.
Much faster than even tuition.
Yeah, so college prices in general, but textbook prices have been rising faster than tuition prices nationally for at least the past decade or two. And so it's getting to be quite a burden, I think, on some of our students, especially those with disadvantaged backgrounds. And so not only can we save our students a lot of money, but we can also provide greater access for classrooms to students who couldn't otherwise afford it. On top of that, I think personally that having an OER initiative could be a great recruitment tool. If your department says, for this entire class or this entire set of classes, you don't have to pay for a textbook, that's a great thing for high school seniors to hear. It's a great thing for their parents to hear. And imagine if an entire university said, here are 7 degrees you can get without paying any textbook costs. There are, I forget the number, but a handful, maybe a dozen or so, of community colleges in the US who have pledged to create entirely textbook cost-free degree plans. And that's, we'll see how that works out. I think that's currently undergoing development or has been deployed. In addition to saving money, though, I think I can speak to personal experience as a teacher. It adds curricular flexibility. When I'm using my old textbook, which I'll get to later, I know that chapter 20 is about large aspects of musical form. And when we get to chapter 20, that's what we teach because it's after chapter 19. But textbooks don't have to be designed that way, especially digital textbooks. And so there's a lot more flexibility. My teaching has changed so much since I've changed out of that other textbook, and because it's so much easier now for me to revise my materials. And lastly, I'll say that OER supports a certain view of teachers, not as people who are gateholders and imparters of knowledge that we own and give to students, but rather that we're guides in learning and that we're curators of an educational experience. And I say we as teachers, but also all of the people around, all the staff around the educational system that help guide the teachers also to these materials. I want to remind people, if you have a classroom that you manage, most of the content that you teach in your classes is available, even in upper division courses, is available somewhere, usually online, usually for free. So if you think that your job as a teacher is to give people information, they can mostly get that themselves. Your main, in my view anyway, your main benefit as a teacher is to curate that material and create these educational experiences. Okay, so I'm convinced OER is important. We should be using open educational resources when we can. Are people using it? The Babson Survey Research Group published a research study a survey that essentially tried to answer that question for the years 2015, 2016. At that time, 25.5% of faculty responded that they were aware of or very aware of the existence of OER. So maybe a quarter of your colleagues know that OER is a thing. That's up 5% from the year before that, so I think that's good. As a result, just over 5% of classes 2 years ago were using OER textbooks. Pretty small, twice that number in large enrollment classes. So think your Physics 101, for example. Roughly 10% of classes are using some form of OER. That doesn't mean they're entirely cost-free, but could be using some. By comparison, the adoption rate of a typical single proprietary text, like this is the text that a lot of people use for Music Theory 1 through 4, a single text usually has market share around 17%, right? So like, I don't know exactly the number for the Coster Paint Tonal Harmony that I used, but on average, a single commercial textbook is used in 17% of classrooms. Okay, so for comparison. Potential reasons for a slow rate of adoption of OER. It's somewhat new, fairly new. As we just saw, a lot of teachers don't know about it. Also inertia. It takes a long time to develop textbooks, for teachers to find textbooks and to decide if they're accurate and of high quality, and to just redesign your lesson plan around that new textbook. Even if you're going from one commercial textbook to another, it takes a long time. It's a huge effort to redesign your classes. So a lot of inertia involved. Also, there may be some skepticism about the accuracy, the quality of those resources, about whether students learn just as well with free as opposed to commercial textbooks, and also just general opinions of professors and students surrounding these resources. I can answer some of those questions or help answer that. There was a research study done by John Hilton in the Educational Technology Research and Development Journal back in 2016, so pretty recent, that tried to answer this question: what is the current state of research regarding the effectiveness of open educational resources as compared to commercial products, and people's opinions, professors and students' opinions about do they like them. So what John Hilton did was look at what he could find was 16 studies that people had done, a sort of a literature review of 16 studies that have been done about OER, some large studies, some small, some focusing just on one class, some focusing on an entire institution. And he tried to summarize the results of that. So the last tab here on open educational resources helps give some background information. But this video actually is primarily just a summary of that research that I'm talking about right now. It's got wonderful graphics and it's really great. But rather than play this 4.5-minute video, I'll give you a really short version of it. What he found essentially in comparing all of these studies was that in general, learning outcomes for students were found to be equal or slightly better in almost all of the studies, not unanimous, but almost all of them, using open resources as opposed to commercial textbooks. And also that a majority of both professors and students had positive opinions when they interacted with open educational resources as compared to the commercial alternatives. There were some limitations outlined in this video, and you can just read the article itself. But those include that OER weren't necessarily a controlled variable, right? It's not like someone took two sections of the same class by the same professor and one of them replaced the textbook and the other one didn't. There's a lot of mixing here, right? So it's not entirely an empirical study in that way. There were other changes as well involving like flipped classrooms. And most of the studies did not have a control group comparing the same teacher. Also, there's only 16 studies that this person was able to even find about the efficacy of OER. So it tells us that it's a pretty recent topic, and so we don't know a lot yet. But what little we do know seems to be positive. And the article ends with a question that's repeated in this video here. If open educational resources, as this research seems to suggest, are equal or better than commercial resources in getting students to learn things, and textbook prices continue to rise the way they have, what exactly are students purchasing with that money that they put toward a textbook. What product are they purchasing? So let me tell you a little bit about my own personal experience using OER in my classroom. So like I said, I teach music theory 1 through 4. It's a 4-semester sequence that all music majors at all undergraduate institutions in the US have to take to call themselves a music major as the first half, sort of part of the first half of their degree. A lot of people refer to my topic as sort of the math of music, because I'll write notes on the board and I'll describe their relationships and how they work, and then I'll just give students some problems and they have to solve them and write them down in answer. So in some ways, it's a lot like a math topic in terms of how the learning takes place. So the textbook that I used back when Dr. Taylor was my supervisor and that I learned out of in a different institution in my undergraduate, and that I brought here to UT Tyler for my first 2 years before I made this change, was the Casca Payne, now it's the Casca Payne Almain, Tonal Harmony with an Introduction to 20th Century Music. And it's a fine textbook, and we have more time, I would show you some more of the details about it, but it's an industry standard textbook, and it comes with a workbook, which is basically just a whole bunch of homework that you can do. There's homework built into here, and there's graded homework that you can rip out and hand it to your professor, like most topics, most subjects in classes. I think it's a good resource, but I've talked already about some of the limitations of using this commercial textbook. What I ended up changing to was, let me show you. Oh, that's a good question. So I don't remember right now exactly, but when I first started taking music theory as an undergraduate, I think that this combination was in the low to mid 100s for the textbook and workbook. It came with an audio CD back then. And now it comes with some really rich online content, which is very valuable for students. And the total package, I think, is in the 260s, 270s. It is for a 4-semester class. So if you divide that by 4, that's not so crazy, but it's a large purchase, especially for a music minor, for example, who's only going to take 2 semesters. Okay, so well, this was that research summary paper that I described earlier, but this is what I've replaced it with. Openmusictheory.com. There's no www. This is the table of contents of an online-only, quote-unquote, textbook that has been developed fairly recently. I think it was developed in 2014 or so, 2012, 2013, so pretty recent. And it's laid out in large part, covers the same content that our textbook, my former textbook covers, but generally in much less detail in this case. So I can show you 2 specific pages. So there are some pages on here that are very small. Right, so here's the topic of modal mixture, which my music colleagues will know is about a certain type of chromaticism using some special fancy chords that are outside the key signature that you're in. And here's the entire page. That's the entire thing. So I've had to supplement quite a bit with my own lecture and lesson planning and development of handouts. However, other ones, like about composing a first species counterpoint, the tonal harmony textbook doesn't even really talk about counterpoint as its own chapter or its own homeworks. It just sort of mentions that counterpoint exists and then goes into some other topics. This, however, has a really rich page that describes how counterpoint works. That is how we take one voice and add another voice to it in a pleasing way. And the content is pretty rich, gives a nice description of it, and how you can go about writing good counterpoint, things that are, good practices and not good practices. And then there's this embedded video where one of the authors of this page shows himself writing counterpoint, like he's doing the homework, a sample homework for the student in real time and talking about his decision making, right? So imagine a math teacher saying, let's learn division, and then doing some division on the screen.
Who puts this together?
This particular resource was developed primarily by 3 authors, Chris Schaefer being one of them, and it was just a community effort, basically, but in this case, 3 specific individuals who put it together, just co-authored it, and have released it intentionally as a free text. And then, okay, so some discussion of practice. And then there's even this cool software that they had designed just for this textbook, where you can go in and on the website itself actually change some notation, and in real time it'll change and play back that material for you. Well, pretty cool. Now, obviously, a commercial textbook could do this as well if they decided to, and maybe there are some that have trinkets like this.
But it wouldn't be embedded in the book.
Right. But it wouldn't be in the book, but it would be on their own websites, right?
Yeah.
So commercial textbooks are very savvy, and they come with rich online content just like this. But it doesn't have to necessarily. So there it is. It exists, and you can write your own piece. Anyway, question.
It will play that piece of.
Oh yeah, sure. Hopefully with audio. We have audio. All right, well that sounds okay, but there's too much parallel motion, and so we can talk about how we would revise that to make it better. All right, good. That's okay. Anyway, this is the textbook that I use now. On top of that, I don't have this. I don't have hundreds of pages of things to hand out to students for them to do and bring back to me. And I need that for music theory. I really need that. I can't just rely on them conceptually understanding and then good, now you know how to write counterpoint. They have to do it over and over. And I think math and probably physics and probably a lot of other areas would agree with that as well. There are some things you just have to practice and do and show me that you've learned that skill as well as some content. And so this was the biggest hurdle for me. I spent a year considering getting rid of my textbooks, and this was the thing keeping me from it. And so what I decided to do one year, I think it was 2013 was the first year I started this, was one semester at a time. I teach theory 1 and 3, and then 2 and 4 in the spring. And so fall 2013, I didn't make that class by this textbook, and I developed homework assignments and practice homework assignments as we went for 4 semesters in a row until I eventually had an entire collection, basically this workbook. I'm not going to say that it's the same quality. You know, this has multiple authors over multiple editions, and they know more music than I do, and that's fine. But here's what I've developed. This is just a publicly available shared Google Drive that has all the stuff that I created over the course of 2 years for this 4-semester sequence. All in all, it is 109 separate documents of homework handouts, practice homework handouts, exams, major projects, syllabi, and each of those things, if we go here into worksheets, each of those pieces of content is available here. This is a weird view. I don't know how to. Well, we'll just do the weird grid view. That's okay. So, oh, good. Is there a list view? There we go. The list view is much easier to read. So here's all the worksheets I have. So I have an analysis of free atonality worksheet. I have a much earlier one like first species counterpoint. So that example we just looked at of that web page that we were looking at, I've developed some homeworks for that. So here's a sample. Here's a PDF that someone can just open and download it. It's shared with the world called first species counterpoint. The student can write their name on it, and here's a pre-made homework assignment that says, I wrote one for you, tell me what I did wrong, and here's another one, you write one for me, okay? I'll interrupt myself here to say what this is. Here at the bottom, I've added a little bit of language that makes really explicit and really clear, I am putting this stuff up online, and I want you to take it and use it in your classroom. I've given a couple of stipulations, so this is what we call a Creative Commons license. It's something that you can do to a piece of work that you've got copyrighted. I created these things in a software notation, and once that was created, it was in a tangible form, so I own the copyright to this document. But I attach a Creative Commons license, a particular one called an attribution share alike license, which means you can take this and share it and use it and copy it and do whatever you want with it, as long as 1, you point back to where you got it, you tell people where you got it. And 2, that if you take it and you remake this document in some other way, that you release that thing under a similar license. Those are the only stipulations. Other than that, you can do whatever you want. So that's fun. When I talked earlier about not just sharing things, but also these resources being designed to be messed with, to be designed to be customized. So you can see that I've got this worksheet. It's a PDF you can just download, but PDFs aren't always easy to edit. I've also got an MUSX file. This is a Finale notation software file. So anybody who has Finale, which is specialized music notation software, can download that instead and change the key of the example, or write a third example, or get rid of the second one because they think it's terrible, and just delete that from the page, print that out as a new PDF or as a new printed document, and they've got a brand new review. They can put, you know, Professor Johnson at the top of that page if they want to. Fine. And so it's not only that you can print it, but also that you can get in and mess with it. And if you don't have Finale notation software, but you have Sibelius or some other software, there's this other file called an XML, which is, I don't know a whole lot about it, but apparently it's something that you're able, because I use Finale, but if you use a different notation software, you're supposed to be able to open at least the content, not the exact layout, in another software. So, and like I said, there's 109, and I don't mean 109 including all 3 versions, right? I mean, like, here's 1, dun, 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 here's 2, dun, dun, dun. There's 109 documents on here. So it's pretty much everything that I use for teaching music theory 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, these are the worksheets. So these are my practice handouts and my official handouts that I grade. I don't put in my titles of which ones I grade. But I've also got larger projects. I've got actual exams, practice exams, syllabi for all the classes. All the things that I would want if I wanted to switch to an open textbook but didn't have a workbook to go with it. Okay, so those are my things. What has that done? Over the course of 2015 through 2017, 2 academic years, I have saved my students, I've calculated $17,600 total. That is spread nearly evenly between 30 students in the Theory 1 through 4 curriculum and 96 online only students in my fundamentals class that I taught for 2 years. Again, those 2 calculations are roughly equal, so half of that 17,000 is just the theory classes. And these are pretty small classes, right? 4 to 15 students for those non-online ones. Anticipated savings for this year are about $5,500. And we in music, a lot of our classes are very small. Imagine if this was incorporated in, I don't know, what's the nursing 101, or imagine if this was incorporated in university physics or in, it could have a really big impact. On top of these savings for my students, this experience also gave me confidence that I didn't need to be tied to a particular textbook with a particular order of chapters that it has to be presented in. And so that gave me the confidence this semester to take my counterpoint class, a class that I teach usually every 2 years or so, and get rid of what used to be my original textbook. This is, I think, $116 for a 1 semester upper division class that 10% of our students are required to take. Kind of a lot, especially for music. And to replace it, not in this case, there was no digital resource I found that was just free. So instead, I just said, use this $15 text that some of you use and buy these pieces of music instead. So this is not really an example of open educational resources in this case, although I am designing my own homeworks for this class now because I've got that experience. But really just a demonstration that my initial process of getting rid of my textbooks, my commercial textbooks, got me comfortable with the idea that I can make my own homeworks and such. So to summarize, or to end, I guess, as you can tell by now, I guess, I'm an advocate for open educational resources, and I think everyone should consider, in whatever role or capacity you have at the institution, adopting or encouraging others to adopt or even to author their own OER. Where do I find them? So, okay, not everyone has, I don't know, 2 years to devote, I don't know, 10 or 12 hours a week to designing homeworks every single week for 2 years straight. So I understand that. It's a big time commitment. I've been there. So where can you get free teaching resources that are specifically designed for OER? I'll have to say apologies to our musician colleagues. There's not a whole lot for music yet, although there's more than there was 2 years ago because I've written a bunch, but not a textbook. But there's not a whole lot in music, but there's some, especially for the fundamentals level. But this resource that Tara has put together under the Open Educational Resources final tab describes not only what OER are, but also of places that you can go to find textbooks. If you teach music history, sorry, if you teach U.S. History 1, or if you teach English Composition 101, I can guarantee you can find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible high quality textbooks that you might be able to use to replace your traditional current textbook. So
And
most fields have extensive amount.
all of the textbooks listed in each of these websites have been highly vetted by academics in those fields.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to worry about adopting an OER textbook from one of these sites that no one has used before. Faculty have been paid to review these open textbooks and make sure that it is providing the same amount of quality and content that a traditional textbook would offer.
Right, and these sites are run by a variety of places. So OER Commons, for example, is an organization that is that through Creative Commons? That tries to advocate for the existence of OER. But some, like MIT OpenCourseWare, MIT, you might know, has a big push toward open and free education. And so they've published a whole bunch of their entire courses online for free. Rice University has a sort of a spin-off nonprofit they created called OpenStax College that's funding some works as well. University of Minnesota has what they call the Open Textbook Library. So these are, mostly reputable organizations that are pushing this.
And if you have interest in adopting OER and you don't see a textbook that applies to your classes, contact me or contact your librarian liaison, because we're more than happy to do that research for you and look into what the best OER textbook or workbook or homework would be. If you're interested in adopting that, we're happy to do that research for you and kind of push you in the right direction so that we've done that due diligence. And so you don't have to worry about that on top of creating a bunch of coursework.
Yeah, most fields you won't have to make your own.
Yeah.
I'll close by saying I'm going to retire in give or take 28 years. That is the year 2046. And my question is, what will the state of university education look like in the year 2046? Well, let's answer that by saying, what did education look like 28 years ago? 28 years ago, I was 7 years old, and I was learning to use a computer for the first time in my elementary school classroom by playing Oregon Trail. Anybody play that? Okay, a couple people know. Okay. But it's an early computer game. And compare that to the computer games we have now. They just blow it out of the water, right? Except for, awesome nostalgia feel, right? You play Atari or regular Nintendo, it's like that. But the things we have in computer games now are just blow that out of the water, right? In terms of complexity and interest. Don't you think that similar changes will happen in our educational system 28 years from now? Think about the way that you organize your classroom, the materials that are available. That change 28 years from now will be, I think, significant. So to close, to return to my story of Dr. Taylor and my first semester teaching as a teaching assistant in music theory, I realize now that I'm going to be Dr. Taylor 28 years from now. I'm going to be that person who has maybe a 3-inch thick binder of materials I can hand out to my TAs if I have them, or to all my colleagues. And I hope that I and all of the other Dr. Taylors of my generation will start putting their entire binders up online for free in a way that can be accessed and changed and used for free. If enough people, I think, buy in and participate into this model of creating and sourcing educational materials, I think this could have a really major impact on society, on the quality, pace, and scope of what we get taught, and obviously on the cost to students and just the enterprise of education in general. So I have some questions for you, but mostly I want to hear, does anybody have questions about any of this topic, about the adoption of open educational resources?
I just wonder, when does your research start, where you compare your old in one class to what you're doing now, and then look at not just the cost savings, but look at student learning, look at grades, look at perceptions of students. I mean, I think that'd be a really interesting study if you had 2 courses in the same semester that were the same, so then you could actually have evidence for more than just cost savings.
That's true. So there's a little bit of evidence, not much, that I can point to in my own experience that I wrote up in an article that's published in this online open access journal. No fee attached. But that essentially is the outline of that I gave a brief version of today. And I talked a little bit about the cost savings, but the only data points I have in there are essentially the class performance in terms of raw outcome, in terms of end semester grade, hasn't gone down. If anything, has gone up by 0.2%. So that's one tiny data point in what should be, hopefully 20 years from now, an ocean of data about whether materials that were not paid for by a for-profit company can still help students learn. And I shouldn't say for-profit. There's a lot of university-affiliated publishers who put out high-quality textbooks. I want to make really clear, like, I'm not bashing the idea of commercial textbooks, but if they're right now in many, in a lot of fields, we're acting as though they're the only option. 95%.
I got 2 kids in college.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
book's $400.
The library recently sent out a survey just a basic survey, like what resources do you not know about? What resources do you want to see? And I think Margot can speak to, overwhelmingly, students were typing in, we need textbooks, we need textbooks. And the library doesn't have textbooks because we can't afford all of the textbooks that all of the faculty use, because the students don't want to pay for them. Or can't pay for them. And so we're seeing the trend from the library perspective of students having that expectation that there at least be one copy of every textbook that every faculty member uses on this campus, if not on reserve, but available for any of them to check out. And we can't do that, but we don't have. But OER solves that issue for the library as well.
And let me just add, all 3 of the textbooks that I mentioned today that I've used in the past or am using now, if I do a Google search for tonal harmony, then the next word, if you type that in, how Google gives you those suggested searches based on what other people have searched. If you type tonal harmony textbook, the first suggestion is free PDF. Same thing. The Art of Counterpoint Fuchs, free PDF online. Like and that's not to say that that's a good model. We should not be encouraging our students to find free illegal versions of copyrighted works that people have published. So
Can I make a comment? And Kyle is right there doing what needs to be done. The Texas legislature was actually interested in this because we've got folks like Rice, University of Minnesota, looking at what can we do to make education affordable and usable. And in the last session, Senate Bill 810 was passed, and there are some things they're trying to work towards. And one of them has to do, they want to see faculty or somewhere in a course schedule, if a course utilizes open educational resources, they want the students to be able to know that and discover that. So they wanted that information to be put out there somehow, either in published course schedules, each semester or whatever. There's some other things that they're working towards also, trying to say, what do we need to do? How can we do this? And the library wanted to see about, we've looked at other models that other places have done. And another piece that ended up in the strategic plan had to do with how can we help educate, encourage, whether it's just the usage of OERs or whether it's the work like Kyle has done to create, modify the others. So it's not just us, it is a big deal right now.
Yeah, and so hopefully if the open access strategic initiative goes through, hopefully also the OER strategic initiative will go through, and the university can help, whether through stipends or scholarships or whatever, help faculty who want to adopt OER and say, or you teach a biology class of 200 students, if you adopt an OER over a semester, we'll give you $2,000 or something like that, because the cost savings to the students is so much. But also we recognize that the cost to the faculty member is so much too, because it's really hard to adopt an OER on your own. So hopefully with that strategic initiative, if it stays in the strategic plan, we can start to create some kind of grant program or something for faculty who are interested in adopting OER to help you guys get to that point.
Yeah, even course realizers, I think, to have the time to write those, develop those worksheets.
I didn't write any scholarly articles for those 2 years, I'll say that.
Well,
it was pretty much my research.
And as OER grows to be a bigger and bigger trend, people are going to do exactly what Kyle did. He found that music theory textbook and was like, I want to use this in my class. There's no homework. So he adopted the homework, and now all of his OER workbook, all of his workbooks are OER too. So now,
and I tell all of my colleagues nationally, please start using my homeworks.
so if they're using that music theory textbook, people don't have to also create their own worksheets if they don't want to, because he's got that supplemental worksheet too. So it's kind of like a culmination. You know, as people create more and share more, it will become less cumbersome on the faculty to have to create that content themselves.
Could a first year faculty member go into OER? Would it be suggested that they wait until they teach a few years before they delve into that?
Well, I would say most faculty, by the time they have a full-time university appointment, have already done some teaching, right? As a private instructor and or as a teaching assistant in graduate school. So I don't see any reason why you couldn't. I think everyone who's taught in your first semester as a university teacher where you have full control over a classroom knows that it's a crazy time anyway, and you're kind of making everything up in terms of resources anyway. So why not make it up in a way that's going to be more flexible in the long run and cheaper for the student? That's the hope of it.
Also, just as open access journals, and Tara talked about peer review process, even within open access, quality open access journals, a lot of the OER repositories and things have processes where they are peer reviewed. And some of the places that I've seen where they do the grants, I know Tara said some paid to do a review. What I wanted to separate too, a little bit of it is it's not the repository necessarily paying to do the review, but let's say if we did a grant and we said we want you to investigate using an OER, but at the same time we would like for you to do a review. And most places don't require that, oh, you got to find one and do a good review. It is give an honest and true review of whatever open access or open educational resource you use.
Well, I see we're coming up to 12:30. I just wanted to see there's someone with a question.
I do. Hi. This is Cheryl Parker. I'm from the School of Nursing. And a couple things. One comment is, one of our problems is that textbooks are still the basis of our certification exams.
Okay.
And so we are kind of led that way, although I just found an open access book on data management, which was real cool.
Okay.
But what does remix and share mean under the conditions of use? Because I found a class that might be of interest, but I don't quite understand the conditions of use.
Can you say more specifically where you're seeing that when you're saying remix? And
Hang on, it was under, I was going through all the open access.
you're on the library website that we.
So I found the library guides, although it was a little difficult to find. I will be honest about that. And I was under, I think it was MIT Open Course. No, it was the first one. It was OER Commons. And I searched for informatics because that's my thing.
Okay.
And I found an overview of the culture of healthcare.
Okay.
And its conditions of use are remix and share.
So we'll look it up. What I'm thinking, just based on those two terms, is remix means that you're allowed to change up the content of that OER as you see fit for your course, and share probably means that they would expect for you to share whatever you remix. So if you take 80% of that textbook and use it word for word, but 20% of it you add your own content or you change, a subject or whatever, they would just expect that you would then share that as well.
Yes, so this is exactly what we were talking about when I was describing the Creative Commons license. It's not exactly the same one as mine, it's just got one more stipulation. So you see under conditions of use, it says Creative Commons attribution, non-commercial, share alike. And so what that means is you have to, anytime you use this in an educational setting, you have to attribute where you got it, which generally means just a link back to this page. unless they have some specific thing in their language. Non-commercial, meaning don't take this resource and then package it and sell it to someone later. Don't make it a commercial textbook.
Right.
And then share alike. If you change this in any way, then you have to release your new content under the exact same license. So those are the only stipulations, and they're saying otherwise it's free for you to use in a classroom, for you to link to for your students. That's my understanding.
Yeah, and probably the reason why they have those conditions of use are because they don't want someone to take this OER and publish it somewhere else and get commercial gain for it. And secondly, they want to continue to foster open educational resources and open access by ensuring that you would share your knowledge to add on top of this content.
Right.
So if I were to take this, then you guys could help me share it if I created something new around it, because I've got five new courses to create.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. This could certainly be, and that gets back to what I talked about sort of remixing, is that this could be either the cornerstone of your class if it works, or if it could just be one unit or one module, one chapter in your sort of virtual class that you're building. And it works well for online classes, but I teach almost exclusively face-to-face, and just instead of having a physical textbook, I point them to chapters in my textbook, and you can do the same thing.
And Cheryl, this is, if you were to adopt this OER and remix it in any way, add chapters, edit chapters, ScholarWorks would be a perfect place for you to share that adapted work that you've done, because then we can point back to this original OER, you could have your version of it, and you'd be able to track how often people are downloading your version of it. I've even talked with Kyle, he showed you that he has all of his 109 homework assignments or practice sheets in a Google Drive. Right now, he doesn't have any way to sort of track if people are using that. We've even talked about adding that content to ScholarWorks under the music department. So that we're preserving it and we're providing another access point to it, but also so that he can see, 20 people downloaded this homework assignment, people are using it. So it's a great outlet for if you want to adopt OER, ScholarWorks can definitely support that.
I just want to chime in one more thing. This is my current semester's Music Theory 2 Canvas page, and I've got a section called Modules, and this is how I integrate these resources. So at the very top of the page in my introduction, I have my syllabus, which is one of those 109 documents you can find, but it's been updated for this semester. I've got a link to some free trainer that's online, and I've got a link to the entire textbook table of contents that we already previewed. And then when I want to talk in Module 2 about phrase functions and theme types, well, there's a certain page for that. And so I link out to the individual page of my online textbook and say, please go read these. Here's your due date this semester. Of course, next year it'll be a different date, but I link to those individual pages. And then all those homeworks that I've created, I've built into assignments that I can enter grades into. So the students can log on there and look at the PDF, print it out, or I can print them out and give it to them. But here they can just go in and see, I can curate it semester by semester, all drawn from kind of the same one or two resources.
Okay.
This is a face-to-face class.
Yeah, and I teach 100% online, so I have to kind of change them all around in my brain and figure out how to do it that way.
Sure.
But yeah, I really appreciate today's session.
Yeah, well, thank you.
And
I'm just a faculty member.
Hey, yeah.
But if you have any questions about anything that we talked about, I think a couple of you, I have looked at your CVs, but if you haven't sent me your CV and you're interested in getting stuff on ScholarWorks, or if you have new publications, or if you want me to look at those preprint, postprints again, if you kept any of those, just shoot me an email and I will get started on that for you. And please, we'll send out an email with a link to that research guide, but please share with your colleagues and let them know that I'm happy to do the work if they have interest in it as well.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions we've missed or anything?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for your time.
Everybody.
Let your
you.
colleagues know.
Good job.
And the recording were in the. I was like, don't want me.
Where's that recording? So let's see it.